Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of Every Man in His Humour, a play by Ben Jonson. In the beginning of the play itself, in the prologue, Ben Jonson tells his intention on writing this play. He says that he wants to give a accurate depiction of Elizabethan London, and the characters must show the images, that is the people of that time. And the important characters here are Novel, we call him as Old Novel, and his son is Edward. And Old Novel is always concerned about his son's education and about the people with whom he is friendly with. Edward Novel is a son of Old Novel, and he loves to write poetry and live a urban lifestyle. Brainworm, he is Old Novel's servant. He is a very intelligent person, and he is a person who loves to help Edward. Then we have Kitley, who is a wealthy cloth merchant, and he is always under the suspicion that his wife is cheating him. Dame Kitely's wife, and she is also suspecting her husband because she gets wrong information from Wellbred. And who is this Wellbred is? He is Dame Kitely's half brother, and he is the person who is causing a lot of mischief and confusion in the play. Captain Bodadil, he is actually a coward, but he pretends to be a very brave soldier, and he has a friend called Matthew, and he is living in Cobb's house. And Master Matthew, he is actually a stupid person, but he acts as though he is a poet, and he quotes other people's poetry and says that is his own writing. And Master Stephen, he is a country gull. He is a nephew of Old Novel, and he tries to appear fashionable and melancholy. We have Downright, who is a blunt and hot-tempered country squire, and he is Wellbred's half-brother, and he does not like the pretenses of Vaudeville and Matthew, because Vaudeville appears as though he shows off as though he is a very brave soldier, whereas he is a coward. And Matthew does not know to write poetry. He quotes others' poetry and says it is own, so he does not like them. Justice Clement is an elderly magistrate, and in the final act, he is the one who clears all the disputes. And we have many supporting characters like Mistress Bridget, who is Kitely's sister, and she marries Edward Novel at the end. Cash, who is Kitely's loyal and knave assistant. Cobb is a working class water bearer and Captain Bodable's landlord. Tib is Cobb's wife, and she is falsely suspected of doing wrong. And Roger Formel is Justice Clement's clerk. Now we will see the play. Old Novel is worried about his son, because he thinks that Edward is so much occupied with poetry, which he feels is idle. That is not useful. At that time, he gets a letter which has come for Edward, and he reads it secretly. And actually, that letter is an invitation from the roguish London gallant Wellbred, who asks Edward to come to Old Jewelry. And Edward goes to meet Wellbred along with Stephen. Master Matthew calls on Captain Bogadil, and Captain Bogadil is living in the house of Cobb, who is a lower class water carrier. And Matthew complains about Downright, who is Wellbred's half brother, saying that he has insulted his fashion sense. And at that time, Bobadil shows him some sword fighting techniques, telling him that next time he gets insulted, he should fight with them like that. Kitely, who is a London cloth merchant, complains to Downright about the behavior of Wellbred, who has been staying with him for some time. According to Kitely, Wellbred has been in bad company, that is, his friends are not good. Downright gets increasingly angry about Wellbred's reported behavior, and also finds Matthew and Vaudeville's highly irritating. At that time, Cobb comes to deliver water, and Kitely begins to worry that he is being cheated. When Dame Kitely and Mistress Bridget show up, he pretends that he is suffering from fever. On London's moorfields, Brainworm enters disguised as a ex-soldier, and he plans to follow Old Novel. Actually, Old Novel has come there to spy on Edward. And so Brainworm decides to follow him and help Edward by informing what his father is trying to do. Now Edward and Stephen, they come, and Brainworm sells Stephen a sword. Soon Oldwell comes there, and Brainworm appears. He is still disguised as a soldier and tells his name is Fitzward. And old Novel takes him as a servant without knowing that he is Brainworm, who is already his servant. In a nearby tavern, Bordadil tries to complain to Wellbred about Downright, but Wellbred says, "Don't say anything bad about my brother, I will not listen to it." At that time, Edward informs Wellbred about old Novel's interception of the letter. And Brainworm reveals his true identity and informs Edward that his father is attempting to spy on him. At the same time, Kitley's jealousy and fear are getting worse. He instructs his servant Cash to tell him immediately if Wellbred and his friends arrive at the house. And as expected, they come there. At that time, he has gone out. So Wellbred asks Cash if Kitely is inside, and Cash tells him no, he has gone to meet Justice Clement. At Bordable lights some tobacco, and Cobb is offended by the smoke, causing Bordable to beat him with a cudgel. And Cash dispatches Cobb to call Kitely, who is at the house of Justice Clement. Receiving Cobb's message that Wellbred and his friends have arrived at his house, Kitely rushes back. At Kitely's house, Downright makes fun of Dame Kitely following Wellbred at the house. Mistress Bridget, Matthew, Bordeville, Wellbred, Stephen, Edward, and Brainworm all come in now. Downright comes there in anger, and Wellbred describes Matthew's behavior as tricks to Mistress Bridget. Some of them take this as a sexual euphemism. And Downright demands that Wellbred leave, taking his friends along with him. They draw out their swords to fight, but Kitely arrives there and he asks everyone to leave except Downright. And Downright talks about his frustration. At that time, Bridget, Dame Kitely, and Kitely try to calm him down. And Kitely is certain that he has been cheated, thinking that Wellbred and the others are hiding in his house, so he goes in search for them. At Cobb's house, Cobb starts to suspect his wife Tib of cheating him. He orders her to stay inside and not to allow any visitors inside the house, and he also suspects that she has taken Bobadil as a lover. Meanwhile, in the tavern, Edward and Wellbred instruct Brainworm to take a message for them, and Wellbred announces his intention to help Edward marry Bridget. Brainworm, who's still in disguise, finds old Novel again in the street in the old jewelry along with Roger Formel, and Roger Formel is Justice Clement's assistant. And he tells old Novel that Edward has discovered his plans to spy on him, and he informs Edward can be found at the house of Cobb. Now Matthew, Edward, Bordable, and Stephen, they discuss about Downright. Bobadil and Matthew promise to get back at him. Just then Downright appears and he challenges Matthew and Bobadil, but Matthew runs away, leaving Bobadil to make excuses for his cowardly behavior. Stephen takes Downright's discarded clock and moves away there slightly. At Kitely's house, Wellbred explains Downright's angry actions as merely being his nature, and he says he has always been like that. At that time, Brainworm arrives, now dressed as Roger Formel, and tells Kitely that Justice Clement has summoned him. Kitely frantically searches for Cash and Cobb to act as sentinels while he is gone. Dame Kitely wonders why her husband is always searching for Cobb, and Wellbred tells that Cobb's wife Tib runs a brothel and therefore facilitates Kitely adultery. In her jealousy, Dame Kitely grabs Thomas and heads for Cobb's house. Wellbred turns his attention to Bridget, trying to persuade her to marry Edward. Kitely returns from Justice Clement because he says, "No, I did not call you," and on hearing that his wife has gone to Cobb's, rushes there. Matthew and Bobadil encounter Brainworm, whom they think is Roger Formel, and ask him for a warrant for Downright's arrest. He says, "Okay, I'll give you the warrant, but give me some money," and they give him jewelry and silk stockings. And Brainworm intends to pawn these items and disguise himself as a sergeant to make the arrest. Novel arrives at Cobb's house hoping to find Edward, but Tib doesn't know what he is talking about. Kitely and Dame Kitely also arrive, each thinking that they'll find the other in the act of adultery. Hearing of his wife's alleged behavior, Cobb beats Tib for her wrongdoing. They all resolve to go to Justice Clement to get his judgment on what has happened. Brainworm, still disguised as sergeant, encounters Matthew and Bobadil, who point them in the direction of Downright, but actually it is Stephen who is wearing Downright's cloak. Downright agrees to be taken to Justice Clement only if Stephen also comes along with them for stealing his coat. Old Novel, Kitely, Dame Kitely, Cash, Tib, and Cobb, they all come to Justice Clement's house. Justice Clement quickly finds out that Novel, Kitely, and Dame Kitely have been duped because he points out that they all have doubted the other person from the information which they got from Wellbred. At that time, Bobadil and Matthew arrive, and Justice Clement is deeply unimpressed with the reports of Bobadil's cowardice. And Clement is surprised to see downright arrive with Brainworm and Stephen, and he asks him how did he agree to be arrested without seeing an official warrant. At that point, Brainworm comes clean about his exploits and he informs the group that Edward and Bridget are getting married. And instead of being angry, Clement is impressed by Brainworm's behavior. Edward, Wellbred, Bridget, and Roger Formal arrive. Clement congratulates the newlywed and also makes fun of Matthew's poetic pretenses, and he orders they to be a merry feast to celebrate the marriage. And in high spirit, Clement talks about how the adventure of the day will be remembered and applauded for a long time into the future, and the play ends here. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box. Hype the video, only then many people can see the video. Like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.